This is the Try Swim Coach podcast, where the most difficult leg of the triathlon becomes your friend, leaving your struggles and your competition behind you. TrySwimCoach.com, helping you to laugh at the water.
Welcome to Try Swim Coach. This is Kevin, and this is episode number 125. And in just a minute, I have an interview coming up with Bryan Falchuk, who wrote a book called Do a Day, and a really interesting chat. I think you'll get a lot out of this one, so stay tuned for that. Just one quick update. It is early November right now as I'm releasing this show. It's actually going to be about mid-November by the time this gets released. But we have a program called The Fit Triathlete. You can find out about it at thefittriathlete.com. And we just had a special for it. We opened it up for people to join. And what it is it's a holistic fitness program specifically for triathletes, but it starts with psychology, and then we build on that, and we talk about nutrition, then sleep, rest, and recovery, then workouts. And it's a program that a lot of people have gone through and built themselves up to be better triathletes, to be more intuitive, to be more mindful, all of that. And this is the off season for a lot of people. So it's a good time to kind of work on these things that a lot of times if you're doing races, there just isn't the time. It's hard to squeeze in that time. So if this is your off season, you may want to take a look at that. Or if it's not even, this could be something you can do in conjunction with your training, especially if you don't have another race for a couple of 2, 3, 4 months. This is a great way to get prepared and to get stronger and more resilient and all of that. So if you want more on this, and also if you want to join here after hearing this podcast, and now again, this is like the middle of November. So if you want to join here sometime before December 1st, just go ahead and go to thefittriathlete.com and you can buy the program, and then just send me an email, kevin@tryswimcoach.com, and let me know that you just signed up and that you heard about it on the podcast. And what we'll do is we will set up a consultation. So we'll get to talk for about 20, 30 minutes about your goals and what you're trying to accomplish. And I'll give you some ideas on how best to get started. So that's, again, that's thefittriathlete.com if you want to check that out. And that's about all I had. I'm looking forward to doing more Try Swim Coach podcasts coming up. And if you have any ideas also that you want to hear about, or if you think we're not doing enough swimming specific podcasts or maybe doing too many, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. So without further ado, here is my interview with Bryan Falchuk. Have a great week of training, and we'll talk to you soon. All right. Well, my guest today has an inspiring story. He went from being obese and depressed to running marathons. He faced nearly losing his wife to illness while their young son watched. And now he's a best-selling author, has spoken at TEDx events, and has written articles for many major publications like Inc. magazine, the Chicago Tribune, and LA Times. Bryan Falchuk has transformed his life and developed an approach to help others do the same that he teaches in his best-selling book, Do a Day. And he's here today to share that philosophy with us. His website is bryanfalchuk.com. Bryan, welcome to Try Swim Coach.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Kevin.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved your book. I thought it applied so much to what people are doing, what a lot of our listeners are doing with trying to do a triathlon and trying to improve their health and fitness levels and all that. It really applied so much. But I really like to go back and talk about like how you grew up and what sort of hardships you faced at that point.
Yeah, thank you for, the whole reason I do this is to have an impact, is to, connect with people and have my message mean something to them. So I always love hearing that. And as you know, like I aspire, I said it in the end of the book, like I aspire to do an Ironman at some point, and I have not done any triathlon yet. So to hear from people who've lived through it and see the connection, I'm like, well, that sets me up for success. Because like if my own philosophy resonates with experts in the field like that, that gives me a little bit more comfort that this is something that's within my capabilities. So I'm psyched for that.
Awesome.
In terms of my background, I grew up, I wasn't like destitute. There was, my life wasn't being threatened. It wasn't a serious, like life-threatening kind of situation like that. But I don't believe that our stories are to be compared. They're just relevant to us and who we are. And mine was what it is. And I think actually it's pretty similar to a lot of people, certainly my generation, our generation. My parents got divorced when I was a little kid. Like that's half of the baby boomers out there ended up getting divorced, and I'm a kid of baby boomers. So that's what I grew up with. And I was the youngest of four. I was about 4.5, 5 years old when things started to pull apart. And at that age, you don't have the means to care for yourself. So for me, it was very much like I felt unsafe. I felt like I wasn't cared for. And that's very unsettling and creates a lot of anxiety for a little kid. And of course, at that age, you don't really understand any of that. So I'm feeling things. I'm not really getting what it is or why. I just don't feel right. I feel exposed, maybe is the right word for it. Mm-hmm. And my parents are pretty embroiled in what's going on with them. There's 3 other kids in the house. And it's not like I'm sitting there clearly verbalizing what I'm feeling. I'm like, oh, Mom, I was thinking about this today and this greatly upset me. And I would like to, I'm like 5 years old. So I just turned to what felt comfortable and what felt good and I had access to. If I didn't have access to them, I had access to food. And food feels good and it tastes good. And the more I felt this way, the more I ate. And food is actually not a valid treatment for anxiety. So you eat something to feel better about things and it works for a few minutes and then you're hungry again because the reason why you ate is actually not satisfied. So I ended up putting on a lot of weight really quickly. This wasn't like, every couple of years, I'm like 10 pounds heavier. It's like you look at me from age 5 to age 6, you look at photos, I'm 2 different kids and I weigh almost as much as 2 different kids by the time I'm 6. So I got to be about 100 pounds overweight when I was at my worst, which was probably like early teens, maybe like 13, 14 years old. And, yes, I was eating too much and moving too little, but that's not why I was obese. I was obese because of this anxiety and my constant need to try to satiate that through food, through the comfort of food. And it's very much a vicious cycle. And of course, then you add in all the anxiety about my weight and feeling physically uncomfortable with it and getting made fun of. And, will girls ever like me? And what if I die early? And like all of that. Mm-hmm. Or, is someone going to judge me for what I'm eating as, are my parents going to see me sneaking food? Like the anxiety only gets worse, not better, because now you've got new reasons to be anxious.
I just want to interrupt there. This is a really, really interesting because we talk a lot about like diets and what kind of diet works and, what people should do. And then
Oreos don't work. It's not a good diet.
Somehow it just doesn't work. Yeah. And you mentioned this whole thing of like eating less and moving more. And we've heard that our whole lives, like, oh, diet, losing weight is so easy. You just eat less and move more. And it's such bullshit in my opinion, because it doesn't work. And if that worked, then most people would not be overweight because that's so simple and it's so simplified. And it sounds, on paper, it does sound legitimate, but it doesn't. It really comes down to psychology. And that's something that I talk about all the time. And the psychology, if you don't have that mastered, then everything else doesn't matter. Like the perfect diet is not going to help you, right?
Because we are not, like, as much as we want to be, we can't be reduced down to one single thing. It's like kale is not the only thing you should eat. Calories in, calories out is not the only answer to physical wellness. It'd be a lot easier if all that was, but stuff just doesn't work that way. We are complete, holistic, complicated beings with emotions and different metabolisms, and we get affected by like the pollen and the weather and climate. Like it's a complex system, so you can't reduce it down. But when you said the word diet, it just reminded me, like, diet to me growing up as a kid in the 80s, it was a word that I spell with a lowercase d. Mm-hmm. The way you define diet is shake for breakfast, shake for lunch, and a sensible dinner. And I saw those like all I did was sit in front of the TV, eating food, watching commercials and like game shows and cartoons. So like that, I don't want to say the brand name, but that like shake-based diet, that's what diet was. Yeah. Like, no, diet is capital D. It's what you eat every day to fuel and sustain your body and your mind. And that's a totally different thing than just calories in, calories out. So that's where I'm coming from, is a story of obesity, but it's not really obesity. Obesity is really just it's as much a symptom as anything else. The underlying issue was one of anxiety. And to back up what you were just saying, in high school, I really didn't want to do sports. We had a sports requirement So, because, like the fat kid can't run and he wheezes and he's slow and people are laughing at him. And then you got to go like in the locker room. And when I take my shirt off, I look like, maybe I should be in the girls' locker room. Like it's not a good scene. And so I tried to get out of sports. And the way you can do that is through the PE program. And physical education at most schools is a total like cop-out sport. It's like you do nothing. Well, we have this amazing Swiss French, like Adonis of a man who, I don't want to put this out there, he's probably in his 60s. I don't want to say that for certain. He still looks like he's in his 30s. And when I was there, he was probably in his 40s, and he's a specimen of extreme physical fitness, not in a bad way, not like he's obsessed with it. He's just perfectly well-roundedly fit and healthy and great attitude. He's just an incredible guy. And so he took this, we really connected. I talk about him in the book. He just took a totally different approach to exercise with me than I've ever had. It wasn't, hey, fat kid, why are you so slow? You need to run more. This is what's wrong with you. That's, your knees hurt because you're fat. You need to exercise. It's like, what do you like doing? Like, we're not going to run because you hate running. So what can we do instead that you actually would enjoy? Because guess what? You're not going to keep doing what you don't like. So he built this positive relationship with movement. And actually what I discovered is I really like exercising. Like a teenager in high school, I want to lift weights. When he introduced me to it, he was like, yeah, do you want to get muscles? Yeah. Like 15-year-old boy doesn't. So he just changed my relationship to food and exercise. And the more I did it, the more I wanted to do it. I wanted to understand more. I wanted to try new things. And so I got really fit. But this isn't a knock on him. I didn't deal with the anxiety at all. And I didn't even realize I needed to. So, it's not his fault. It's mine. So while I lost weight, I got down from 270 something. I don't know exactly. I stopped weighing myself at 248 because I couldn't take it anymore. But I know I kept getting bigger. Like my pant size is probably 4 to 6 inches wider than it was when I was 248 when I got to my worst. So I'm guessing somewhere in the 270s. I got down to like 183, I think was the lightest I got in high school. But I was pretty muscular. Like I could curl like a beast. I don't know what, like that's what I focused on was curling. But I was, I had good muscles. I had big, strong legs. I could leg press like crazy. And I had cardio capability all of a sudden. But like so many people who lose weight, I put a bunch of it back on little by little this time. Like every year my weight would go up a little bit and I get a little less muscly. So, my fat weight was going up more than the scale was saying because I was trading the muscle. But I never dealt with the reasons. So I kept needing to fill a hole with food. And of course, I was working out insanely, like way too many hours. I definitely actually was dealing with bulimia using exercise as my purge, not throwing up. And then I go to college and like, I just couldn't do that. I didn't have 6 hours to go sit on a recumbent bike or something. Like that's just not going to happen. So you go from being able to eat 4,000 or 5,000 calories and still lose weight to maybe you cut back to like just 4,000, not 5,000, but you're only burning 600 at the gym. Well, like that's a totally different game. And so, yeah, I started to put weight back on, but I never looked obese again. I always say like, I just looked American, like I looked like everybody. And so it wasn't that, like, I remember I went to a water park and I would never have taken my shirt off when I was fat. And I paused. I was like, oh, I don't want to go into this place. I'm going to have to walk around with my shirt off. And then I looked around. I'm like, oh, I don't look any different than these people. Maybe I even look better, even though I think less of myself. But no one would have pointed at me and been like, oh my God, he's disgusting. They just wouldn't even have noticed. And so I kind of sleepwalked. I don't know what the past tense is. Sleepwalked my way into, I put on almost another 50 pounds from getting down to that 183. Like I was in the maybe 40 pounds. I was in the somewhere in the 220s by my early 30s. And more important than that, I was miserable because I was still super anxious. Only now something else came along. I was a husband and a father to a really cool 2-year-old boy. And my wife got sick. And she'd had these flare-ups that could never be explained. They go away after a couple of days. And so she had one. And it's like, full body, lots of pain, can't keep food down, just like severe pain in all of her joints and her digestive tract, like her stomach hurt. And it wouldn't go away. And like 3 days goes by, it's still not going away. And 4 and 5. And it's like, we've never seen this before. After several weeks, she's now like barely over 100 pounds, can't get out of bed, still getting worse every day. And that idea of getting worse is really hard to fathom because each day is so terrible.
Yeah.
You don't understand how there could be a worse, but there somehow it finds a way to be worse.
Right.
So I get a call from her doctor who basically like they couldn't figure anything out. They're kind of blaming her and just being really unhelpful. They're like, "Oh, you sure you're not just depressed?" I was like, "Well, how would you feel if this was going on for you?" Of course she's depressed.
Right.
And she's really sick. Like she was okay before there. It's not like she's making this up. And for sure, like, when you're in that kind of situation and death is a real possibility, your anxiety will flare up for anybody. So yes, she did have emotional kind of issues going on too, totally normally. Like, of course she did. But those all came after she got sick. So he's just like, I'm going on vacation for 6 weeks. I'll check in when I'm back. And I was like, do the math. She's not going to be here in 6 weeks. And he just goes, "Oh, well, okay, take her to the ER if you need to." And he hung up. And I get off the phone with him. And that's when it really hits me is like, I'm about to lose my wife.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to be a single dad to this little boy. Like, I work full time. And God, like, I had such anxiety as a little kid from the divorce. What's it going to be like for him losing his mother? And it's happening in front of his eyes. He's been watching this whole process.
Mm-hmm.
So I walk back into our bedroom and he's standing there looking at his mom in bed, and he turns and looks at me. And when those eyes hit me, I was done. Like, that was just like such a strong wake up call for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was like something hit me in the head. It's just like, what is wrong with you? You have been living your life in such an unbelievably unacceptable way, letting this anxiety guide everything and guide the kind of person you are. So like, she just needs me to hear her and stand by her. And I'm so busy doing things and freaking out that, anytime she tries to talk to me about her symptoms, I get all pissed off because I'm like, you just need to do this. You need to, like, I want to fix it.
Right.
And I don't want to sit here and ruminate, but she just needs to be heard. And I couldn't give her that. And for my son, "Daddy, will you play with me? Will you read to me?" "No, I have to go do this. I have to go make dinner. I have to go do the laundry. I have to, like, I'm also trying to work at the same time." He just needed someone to be there with him and to make him feel like everything's going to be okay. And I couldn't do that. And the last piece of it, and this took me years to really understand, it's not just about her and him. Ultimately, it's about me. It's like, why do I need to live a life like this?
Mm-hmm.
Why do I need to be so overwhelmed by this anxiety? And I was telling myself a story that it was serving me. I was a management consultant for years. So actually my job was to look at what's about to go wrong and fix it, or like what is going wrong and cleaning it up. Like, well, that's what my anxiety is all about. It's like, the sky's about to fall. Bryan, get into action and do something.
Yeah.
And it had kept me afloat. Like the post-divorce, or, a lot of issues in my house. And I kept things going, at least for me. Like, my anxiety served me well. Yet, as you look at it, I always thought the world was about to end. I always thought everything was the worst thing that could be happening and there's no way out of this. And yet somehow I'm still here. So
amazing how that happens.
Yeah, kind of funny, right? Like, obviously I'm way more capable than I seem to think I am, because I've saved myself every single time, and or things aren't as bad as I always insist they are.
Right.
At what point am I going to wake up and accept that as reality, and not that everything's the end of the world and I can't do anything about it? That's not actually the narrative. So in this moment, like with my son's eyes hitting me, that's when these things hit me. And I recognized something was very different inside of me. Literally in that one moment is June 30th, 2011. When I woke up the next morning, I still felt it. And I was like, all right, man, like, this is your chance. This is a lifeline, and it's up to you whether you want to grab onto this or you want to let it slip away. And because that's, anytime I'd had any inkling of this kind of feeling before, it was gone. Like, I was just like, oh, interesting. I was like, you need to make some serious changes right here, right now. And you need to spend some real time reflecting on this, understanding this, picking this apart, and figuring out, why is this different, so you can harness it going forward. And that's what I did starting July 1st. And that's like, it's been a totally different experience since then. My life is 180 degrees from the direction it was heading in.
Yeah, so that's an amazing story. Now, how did you kind of were almost forced to make that shift, it seems like. And how were you able to continue on with that after that point?
Yeah.
Okay, you decide, you're like, okay, I got to change this. And then like a few months, 6 months, a year later, how did you just keep that as a permanent change in your psychology?
So there's a few things that go into it. And there's the building blocks that I talk about in the book. The biggest single thing for me was this sense of purpose. And that's what I've kept front and center for me nonstop. And I focus on it every morning when I wake up. I bring myself back to like, why am I doing this? What is it that matters to me? Who am I trying to be? And so my days are framed by what I actually care about. And that helps the noise of everything else going on. Like it's still there, but it's just noise. It's like someone gave me this example for the idea of meditation when you get all these thoughts. And it's like, think of it like traffic. The car can be coming at you. Just notice it drive by. Don't step out in front of it. Like there's always stuff going on in life. When people are like, oh, if I, once this happens, then I can do that. Like I can't start my diet today because it's Jimmy's birthday from accounting. They're going to have a cake.
Yeah, of course.
All my examples are someone who works in accounting. I don't know why. But yeah, it's like, look, there's always food. Like for most people who are listening to this, you don't live in a situation where there isn't food around. So you can't predicate starting your diet on, this is lowercase d stuff, but on there not being tempting other foods. So like you need to not just wait until things quiet down. I just have to get through year end and then I'll be fine. Well, yeah. And then it's like whatever's going on in January. And like, that's not life. So I keep that stuff front and center for me. And that's when I first put the book out, that was like number one ground rule is to work on finding your true motivation. It's what will always matter to you above everything else, no matter what's going on.
Right.
The second thing is really the first, and it came second in writing the book because I added it after a year. For me, like I don't know why I didn't call this out as explicitly, but post the book coming out, the coaching work and the speaking I've done, it's become crystal clear to me just how much of an issue this is, certainly in Western society. If you want to build a house of success, motivation is the foundation. And that's where I started. This thing actually is the solid ground that the foundation's on. You can't build it on a marsh, and it's self-love. Mm-hmm. And this is what I've come to understand in the past year or so, like 9 months or whatever, since re-releasing the book, the revision of the book. We as a society and as individuals are really bad at respecting ourselves and thinking highly of ourselves. And I don't mean like, you have a great victory and you celebrate that win, but generally think about the last time someone complimented you. And the best example is going to someone's house for dinner or having people come over for dinner, because everyone sucks at this. Like you make whatever meal, you compliment, the people compliment you on it, and you immediately dismiss it. You're like, oh, thanks, but I burnt the chicken. Yeah. Like, it's just pronounced thanks. Like, we can't just allow even something as simple as you just made this food for me and I enjoyed eating it. We can't allow that idea to be out there in the world without dismissing it or taking away from it. Yeah. I love the story. Like my brother, he used to cook like crazy good. He was like super gourmet for a while. He's given up on it now, but we go to his house and whenever we went, whatever we had, he would always say, you should have been here last night. We had X. It was amazing. And like every single meal was, you should have been here last night. And I finally was like, Jason, why didn't you invite me over last night? Like that's always a better, like, oh, we had lamb last night. You should have been here. It was incredible. I'm like, well, what's this crap you're serving us tonight?
Yeah.
But it's like, just allow for something good about yourself to be out there. And we do it like we get in these arguments with people about who worked later, whose boss is worse, whose spouse is worse to them, whose like money's tighter. And the winner is the person who's more miserable.
Right, that's true.
Like,
yeah, very true.
Totally. It's got to stop.
Yeah.
And we do it in the fitness community too. Is like, oh my God, my calves are like the delayed onset muscle soreness. Like, oh, my legs are barking today.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Like, or like, why don't you just be like, I had an amazing workout and I'm feeling the impact on my body today. That's awesome.
Yeah. There's a forum I used to go to back when people went to message boards early on with the triathlon stuff. There's a forum called beginnertriathlete.com, and it's just like thousands of triathletes, and you could go there any time of day and there'd be like at least 1,000 people looking at the board and commenting. And yeah, the most popular threads were about how horrible someone was, like, oh, I'm so slow and this and that. And people just kind of like agree and commiserate. And it's so funny how that happens. And I work with that with the swimmers, like this self-concept has to be there. Like you can't just keep telling yourself, oh, I'm such a horrible swimmer. I'll never get this. It's like, no, you start with that. And then that's where your mind is your body's going to follow where your mind is going. And so, I think that's amazing. And I was just going to go back, and you mentioned this whole like start with your purpose. And it's funny, we have this program called the Fit Triathlete. It's kind of goes along with the Tri Swim Coach. And the first part of it is psychology. And the very first thing I do is have them start with why, like, what is your why? Yeah. And then the second thing I do is have them do these self-acceptance exercises. They're written exercises to be accepting of themselves, same thing as what you're talking about, self-love. And the self-acceptance those are some of the hardest things they do in this entire course. We get into nutrition, we get into sleep and workouts, but everybody says, this self-acceptance stuff is so hard.
Yeah. Well, and so here's the reason why I start with it. And I'm not telling you your program's wrong. It's fine. Like, as long as you hit it, that's all I really care about. But if you don't have self-love, and I think when we talked offline a couple of days ago, I was like, I've coached some people who get really squeamish when I start using the word self-love. I'm like, so I always say, like, call it whatever you want. Right. Use some tough guy word, like call it Terminator. So I don't care. You have to have it. Whatever you want to name it is irrelevant. If you don't have it, here's the cost. It means that you don't believe that you deserve to have better, and it means that you're not capable of that better, whether you deserve it or not. Mm-hmm. If you don't have that feeling inside of you that you deserve better and you're capable of achieving it, it really doesn't matter what else we do, because you're always going to stand against it, consciously or subconsciously. Mm-hmm. And it may be just in one little aspect of it. It's like we were talking about triathlon, and I was saying, I've never been a good swimmer, but I didn't say I can never be. I just said, like, I know I need to take lessons. Like, right. I need a coach to teach me, and I'll get there. Right. I'm not worried about it. I remember when I bought my first road bike, after only riding a mountain bike my entire life, and I hadn't ridden in like 15 years. And for some reason, I'm like, I'm going to pick up road cycling now, and let me lock my feet into these $100 pedals. Like, what, you have to pay for pedals? They don't just come with the bike.
Yeah, right.
And now I'm like, why'd I get the $100 ones? Like, that's not good enough.
Yeah.
But I was so scared out of my mind to get on the road because my feet are locked in. And what am I supposed to do? And like, look, you will get better with all these things if you believe that you can. But if you don't, if I ride with this notion that I'm about to fall and I'm not going to be able to do anything about it because my feet are stuck in these pedals and I don't know how to get them out, guess what's going to happen? I'm going to break my bike and my elbow and some other stuff. So like, it is all mindset. You have to think differently about yourself, your possibilities, and your ability to seize those possibilities, or the rest of what we talk about is honestly, it's irrelevant. And so when I do a lot of coaching work, people sometimes feel like we spend too much time on the self-love side. But the reason is because there isn't as much purpose in moving forward if you're still going to be sabotaging yourself. Mm-hmm. Like, it's great to explore that stuff, but ultimately we can't put it into action until you're ready to go. I always say, like, I should have had that more explicitly in the book when I put it out the first time, but self-love, I'm not going to beat myself up for it. I put it, I changed the book, I put it out, and I have a free update to the original print. So if someone's gotten it, in print, because you can get it like ebook or newer print, you get the new content. But I just, I put it out there for free. I've written tons of articles on it. So like, you can get the ideas. So I've done my part to fix the problem, but yeah, it's kind of all that matters. And I've become acutely aware of how people talk and act. And I notice it day in, day out when people, like, they start emails with, I'm sorry. Like, why are you sorry? Like, I had a woman who worked for me who every single phone call started with, I'm sorry. And then she'd go off. I'm like, wait, why are you doing that? Yeah. Why are you saying I'm sorry? I don't even know what's going on and you haven't done anything wrong. But immediately you frame this whole conversation as, I'm a screw up.
Right.
Now I'm going to tell you what I've done. So I started hanging up on her anytime she started with, I'm sorry. And so she'd call right back laughing. But like, it's little things like that that actually contribute to it. And you got to change it.
Yeah. You mentioned the beating yourself up thing. And I've worked with people that are trying to lose weight or trying to get fit. And that is another huge thing that happens is, and I write this email that goes out to my Tri Swim Coach list goes out about once a week. I have other writers, but my emails tend to be about this concept of not kicking your own ass. Like we were all brought up, most of us were brought up and with this idea, like you mentioned back when you were doing like PE and your teacher wasn't doing the typical thing of like, come on, let's go and get up and sort of like writing you. And people think that that's sort of the norm. Like, and then they start treating themselves like even at 30, 40, 50 years old, they're still kind of doing this thing that their parents did to them or their coaches or whatever it was, that they're just like yelling at themselves like, oh, you're horrible. You need to, you need to go faster. You need to do more. And then like for swimming, it would be like, I was going to do 3,000 yards today, but I only did 2,500 and I feel terrible about myself. But where does that get you? Like all this constant beating yourself, your inner drill sergeant, right? You're just yelling at yourself.
Yeah, it's just not necessary at all. I was even thinking about like the number of Garmin fail posts, and I love my Garmin, so I'm not actually knocking Garmin. Let's call it some other brand, but like, it didn't record or it ended or like the calories were just way off or like, and then you feel like crap about the workout. It's like, it's not the workout's fault. And it still happened, even though you didn't record it, right? Like I've definitely had that, like, great. Now it's like, I didn't even run today. It's like, no, I ran and that's okay. Right. But I have to put it in manually. And so there's no map to prove it, but like, dude, let it go. It doesn't mean your feet weren't moving, but we all get in those spaces. One really interesting thing about the guy's name's Mr. Andre. Well, his name's not Mr. It's Henri, but I feel weird calling him by his first name even to this day. And I'm in my 40s, like I should be fine with it now. Right. But I've only heard him use the word bad one time. And it's when someone threw up blood. Like, I think that qualifies. So someone was like horribly sick. He ended up going to the hospital. It was a big deal. But he would say something's good or it's not good. Or if it's really serious, it's not good at all.
Right.
But I never, except for that one instance where like, someone had to get an ambulance, he never said bad. And it's such a minor thing. But just that framing, like everything is framed relative to its goodness. Mm-hmm. Little thing, but like it's so emblematic of the kind of human being he is. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a great. And one of the other things I was going to mention is this idea of intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. It sounds like your story, you got some benefit out of some extrinsic motivation with this guy, but then it eventually that kind of, that only works for so long. And then you had to dig in and get the intrinsic motivation. So I was wondering, like, how did that go? And how were you able to stay with that and keep it?
So that's one of the key differences in how I talk about motivation is there's 4 key things for me about motivation. And the last one is kind of a cheat because it overlaps with the first 2 at least. But it's got to be something deep within you. This is the intrinsic versus extrinsic. Mm-hmm. And I'll talk about that in a second, where I wasn't building the right kind of sense of motivation. It can't be something that exists outside of you. And when I first released the book, I talked about my son being my true motivation and my feelings about him and my role as his father. And it actually was like several months after the book came out on a podcast where one of the hosts called me out and he's like, that's outside of you. And I know, like, as a parent, your kids, like, you feel it so deep inside, but he's still outside of you. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's like whether I don't want to think this, but like whether my son's here or not, I will always feel that. Right. As long as I'm alive, regardless of what's going on with him, I will always feel that. But I take his point. And so what I looked deeper inside myself and recognized there's another layer to that. And like, why do I feel that way about my role as a father? And what does that mean to me? And what is it about the kind of life I want to live that would make me a better father? So that's something I explored to get one level deeper and more intrinsic and inside of me. And that's true, deep motivation, deep within you. The second is it's got to be profound. And what I mean by that is it's something that, like, honestly could bring you to tears at any moment or bring you to your knees. So when we're talking about these deep, profound things, we're talking about stuff that it's about values. It's about what's operating at your core. So it's like when you're in that toughest moment, when someone says dig deep, that's the thing you're digging for. And when I did my first TED Talk, which was on this book, it was a year after I put the book out, and I'd done like 80 interviews already on it and a couple of other talks. I'm on that stage and you can see it in the video. Like, I almost start crying when I'm talking about my motivation. And it's like, dude, if I should be fine talking about this, it would have happened by now. But the fact that it can still bring me to that point that says something to me. So really profound stuff that will stop you dead in your tracks, because that's what it takes when you're, like I think about when I ran the Chicago Marathon, I was sick. I was it was a terrible experience for me physically. Something was very wrong. And I kept eyeing the medical tent and having this battle in my head about like, am I making a mistake by continuing on? Like, am I actually putting my life in jeopardy right now? I was in so much pain, and I'm like, is it nerves? It turns out like I was sick. I just didn't know. But talk about having to dig deep. I had to really search within myself to get my hips to unlock and start moving again. And I finished. And I just saw the New York Marathon, some of the celebrities, and like Tiki Barber, who's, professional or retired professional athlete and just awesome guy. He was like 13 seconds slower in New York than I was in Chicago, and like different races and everything. But that made me feel a lot better. All of a sudden, it's like, okay, like, I had this, what I thought was a terrible experience, but I was just beating myself up. But I had to dig deep for that one. And if I didn't have something that profound, I don't know that it would have gotten me through. So that's deep within you, profound. The third is that it has to be something that endures. And this is where I really fell down. Coming out of high school, it was a mix of external and time bound. So my motivation in high school was kind of petty in some respects, but I didn't want to be seen as the fat kid anymore, because that's how everyone saw me. And especially like teenage boy, girls don't like the fat kid generally, or the girls that you want to like you certainly don't like the fat kid. And I was tired of that. Like, I was lonely and it hurt. And I lose weight. And I go to college and no one knows me there. So guess what happens? My motivation stayed in high school and I was alone in college. So it stopped motivating me. And that's an issue. So when people talk about beach season or that race or, your wedding or whatever it is, that is the thing you're driving for and that's your motivation, that is not your motivation. That's a finish line. But if that's what's motivating you, you should expect to fail as soon as that thing's over.
Right.
And that's just reality. And it's not just about weight loss or fitness. Like, it's about anything. Yeah. So it's got to be something that endures. And the last one is kind of duplicative with the first two, but I like to call it out specifically, is it has to be non-material. And that's just going back to, it's not about stuff and things, it's about values. So the way I illustrate it, and granted these are both things, but it's like the difference between a house and a home. A house is the four-walled object that you spend way too much money on and that you live inside of, that you hope people drive by and think is really nice and like, keeping up with the Joneses. Like, that's a house. It's a thing. A home is where your family lives, and they are both material things. So that's why it's kind of a weird example to use to prove the point. But that nuance between those two things, you're talking about the same building. But in one of them, it's just about the building, the materiality of it. And the other, it's about the values and where your family lives. That's kind of what I'm getting at here. So it's not about, I want to be CEO so I can buy a Ferrari. It's because I want to have impact on people and be a leader and like whatever else values wise that makes that matter, but not just so you can buy stuff because CEOs are paid well. Because you'll always want to make more money. It's human nature. We always want 10% more than we have.
That's right. Yeah. And for people that are doing these endurance sports, marathons, triathlons, there's the trophies and medals and did I land on the podium this time? And those are all the kind of material.
And always get faster.
Yeah. That's the thing. I look back at, I was a competitive swimmer like in college and, I was going to nationals. I was placing in the top 8 at nationals. But I always, like one of my friends that I swam with, one time he said that he was at this, kind of random swim workout thing and somebody was like praising him about how fast he was. He's like, oh, you're so fast. And he's like, it doesn't really matter because I can always look up and find someone faster than me. So to accept that and say, to get all like conceited or arrogant about it, it's like, it doesn't really make sense because there's always going to be someone faster. And even like Michael Phelps, someday someone's going to beat his records. I mean, it's going to happen. And so even at that level, it's not, you can't just sit back and say, okay, I'm awesome. And that's it.
He's not first place in every single race he does.
Right.
So, and he seems to be okay with that. He's done just fine.
Yeah, totally.
There's always like Eliud Kipchoge, who is the fastest official marathon time, has the fastest official marathon time. The only thing he really had to say about it, if you haven't looked into him, he's an amazing human being. His outlook, his values, it's just unbelievable. But like all he frames it as is he just cut down the distance between breaking 2 hours and the fastest time so far, so that now people only have this much to think about. Like he just relieving pressure for whoever is ultimately going to do it, which is such a nice way to look at it. But he's only thinking about who's faster. And he wants to see the sport achieve that barrier, break through that barrier of 2 hours, which even, on the course in Monza with like a Tesla in front of him, creating a wind barrier and all the shoe technology and everything from Nike that they could throw at it, he still couldn't do it.
Yeah.
He's such a cool guy.
Yeah, totally. I think there was a documentary. I just watched it.
Breaking 2.
Yeah, that's right.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it was really good.
I really didn't like the Breaking 2 project. I didn't like what it stood for. I felt like it was too commercial. And then I watched the documentary, and I got to say, I had a lot to learn, and that was unfair of me to pass that judgment, because when you get inside of it, you see that this isn't about like commercialization. It's really about the possibility of what humans can achieve. Yeah. And they were just trying to see, if we try to take out all of the barriers, could we get there? And then let's reverse engineer it into the real world. It's not about Nike trying to claim, yes, they'd get press and all that, but like, I thought it was a commercial driven kind of thing. And it really wasn't. It was excited people, scientists and runners who were like, what could we possibly do with the human body? How amazing is that?
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. Do you remember, is it on YouTube, or was this something that was like
I think it was either Netflix or Amazon Prime. It was one. I watched on one of the two.
Okay. Well,
I don't think it was YouTube.
Yeah. Okay. I'll try to find the link and put it in the show notes for anyone that's interested.
It's good.
Yeah. It's really, really good stuff.
I mean, it's like Roger Bannister when he broke the 4-minute mile.
Yeah.
Like that, all of a sudden, how long did that record stand for? Like days?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's kind of Kipchoge's view, is like, we just need to show people that you can do it.
Right.
And then I don't think we're going to have a 1 hour marathon, but it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Now, okay, so your book is called Do a Day. And so I wanted to ask you about that. So what is the philosophy? What is the Do a Day philosophy? And can you give some examples of like how that works in different parts of life?
For sure. So Do a Day itself is an execution strategy. So when you love yourself, you know why you're doing things. You've got your motivation. You have some specific big goals. And goals for me are about where you want to take your life to. Not, when I had 100 pounds to lose, the goal was not 5, because 5 pounds doesn't change my life. And while 100's daunting, and we'll get to that in a second, that's what I needed to do to get my life to the place where it needed to be. So it's the real goal. It's like when you're running the marathon, it's not about the 26.2 that lays ahead. For runners who are in that spot, it's kind of like, there's a street sign up there. I'm just going to run to that street sign. So like you can have your interim 5-pounders and street signs and all the interim stuff, but the real goal is the finish line for that specific thing you're trying to change. But then we get to the daunting part. And this is where the idea of Do a Day really comes in. Every single day, especially in high school, I would wake up and have a pep talk with myself about how today is going to be different. I'm not going to eat all that crap, and I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. And, within an hour or two, it was done. Like I had fallen right back into the trap, because I'd still get back to like, okay, even if I like really restrain myself and push myself really hard at PE class today, I'm still like, even if I lost 5 pounds, I still have 95 more pounds to lose.
Right.
It's too much, and it's like, if you're really hurting and you've still got like, I did a century ride. I was supposed to be doing a metric century, and they screwed up the course. And so at like mile 83, it should have been done at 62. At mile 83, I still haven't seen the turnoff for the people doing the 100-kilometer ride. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what am I doing? I'm out of hydration. I'm out of fuel. I'm dead tired. And I still have many miles to go. Oh, and by the way, I decided to ride my bike to the event because 100K wasn't big enough for me. So the 10-mile ride to and from, I was like, well, there's another 20 miles. Well, now it's a different story because I'm riding an extra 40 in the event.
Yeah.
So it's like, what do I do? Do I pull over? Do I, call home and get my wife to come pick me up? Like, how am I going to get through this? Well, the thing about 100 pounds 100 miles, whatever big goal you have, you're not doing all of it right now. I didn't have to turn the crank and put in the extra 17 miles from where I was at on top of the 15 extra I had already done, or was it 21 extra I had just done? I didn't have to be like just busting my hump every day, not eating and sweating my brains out to lose the next 95 pounds or 99 pounds or whatever the number was right now.
Yeah.
That's the idea of do a day. So we tend to live trapped between two things, and those two things are what guide so much of our current life. And this was 100% who I was with this anxiety. Mm-hmm. We live with yesterday's pain, regret, sense of loss. Maybe it's a happy thing that we don't have anymore. And so we bring those negative feelings into the present moment. We're mad at someone for what happened yesterday. We're mad at ourselves for our poor performance, or, not putting in the work, or eating that thing we know we shouldn't have eaten, but we did it anyway. Or, that relationship that ended and you want them back and you can never have them, like whatever it is. We feel all that right now. And that sits on us as we make our decisions and choose our actions in the present moment. And we pass a lot of judgment. And we do it with tomorrow too. And tomorrow was definitely my drug of choice, was all the things that we're going to have to do or that are going to hit us in the face or potentially go wrong. And it can be for good things too. Like the night before I got my driver's license, I didn't sleep at all because I was so excited, like 16, like here we go. I'm going to get my driver's license, which didn't really bode well for taking the test when you haven't slept all night. We have all this fear and anticipation of tomorrow, and we bring that into the present moment, and we make our choices about what actions we take based on the pain of yesterday and the fear and anticipation of tomorrow. And when you make decisions based on pain and anxiety and insecurity, you generally make pretty bad choices. Mm-hmm. And what you end up doing is when you make those bad choices, you throw away the present. And ultimately, that's all you actually have is the present. It's never yesterday and it's never tomorrow. Yet you live today as if it was, and you give today up. Mm-hmm. So do a day is recognizing that, working through what your past pains are, working through the reasons why you're worked up about the future, so you can be in the present moment free of those things, and just mindfully ask yourself, given what my motivation is, what really matters, given what I'm trying to achieve, what do I have to do today in this moment in pursuit of that goal? And it doesn't matter whether I've done it before or whether I failed to do it before. And it doesn't matter how many more times I'm going to have to do it tomorrow, or whether it's going to be easy or hard tomorrow, or I'm going to fail tomorrow. None of that's happening right now. So turn the crank right now. Make a different food choice with that bite that you're debating putting in your mouth. Make a different choice about running and giving up because you're tired, or pick that lamp out in the distance or that bench or whatever it is. Just get to that, because you don't have to do the entire distance with this step right now. Right. And that I found to be unbelievably freeing. And endurance sports is actually such a great context to put it in, because that's the nature of the whole beast. There's always a ton lying in front of you, whether it's all the training you have to do until race day or that actual event. There's a lot of effort between here and the end, but you're not doing it all right now. It's just free yourself from that weight, because you got other stuff to focus on in this moment.
Yeah, it's such an amazing concept that it's so easy, but it's also easy to just kind of overlook it and go for like I had a friend a few years ago. I had a friend that came to me. He needed to lose, I'd say, well over 100 pounds. I can't remember what the exact, but he was quite obese, and he wanted my advice on like how he should start like eating differently and exercising. And so I gave him some ideas, and he went right out and he started changing his diet and started doing some like daily walks and things like that. And I saw him like 2 weeks later, and I'm like, oh, how's things going? And he's like, yeah, not so good. Not so good. I've only lost 2 pounds. This is not working for me. I'm like, well, that's where this kind of idea of do a day is so, it could be so helpful for people like that have a monumental, like in their mind, like in his mind, it was like, 2 pounds is nothing. He's like, I need to lose 100. It's like, this is not going to work for me.
Yeah, I totally agree. He needs to explore why he's doing it. He needs to explore, plan out a little bit. Like, one of the things I say to people is, when I looked at my second time around with weight loss, it was like, I don't know, 46 pounds or whatever the heck it was. It's like any good goal setting. Like it was specific, measurable, action oriented. You know, I had all the SMART components built out, and I had done this before. So I knew the tools. I knew what to do with exercise. I knew what to do with food. I needed to plot the course a lot more clearly so I could stick to it, and I needed to watch myself doing it. So I think you can do that with 50 pounds or 20 pounds or 100 pounds. When people are like, I just need to lose 5 pounds, I actually think that's really hard. I don't know what I could do to lose 5 pounds in a meaningful, sustainable way. I know what to do, but like, that's not a focus. That's not enough to be like, I need to have real purpose in my life to get there. You can just not eat for a day. You'll probably get 7 pounds or, whatever. Like there are unhealthy ways to get there. But if you want to change your life and sustain, then it's got to be a lot bigger, a lot more specific, and you have to watch how you're doing it. And I plotted the course from July 1st to, I wanted by the end of the year to go from, I think my weight in July 1st was 222, and I was 22% body fat, and I was 32, and my son was 2. It was like all these 2s. And before 2012, which has a 2 in it, by the end of the year, I wanted to get to 185. So, just shy of 40 pounds. And I didn't do it. My 33rd birthday was October, and that's when I hit it. And by the end of the year, I got to 180. Mm-hmm. And this morning I was 177.7, but who's counting? I have basically been 180 since the end of 2011. And this is the first time in my life where I don't describe myself as, like I used to say, I spent the first half of my life obese and the second half trying not to be. That is probably not surprisingly not the best way to describe your life. Like, Who are you? Oh, I'm this guy who's trying not to be fat again. There's a number of reasons for it. One of them is I've adopted a plant-based lifestyle, and that's probably the unlock for me, that I can eat whatever the heck I want and it has no impact. And like generally I eat a whole food plant-based diet, so it is pretty hard for me to fall off the wagon. Yeah. And I do this by choice, and I actually enjoy it, and it's pretty easy. I'll be 4 years in January. I love the fact that I don't have to think about what I eat. I don't have to work hard. Like I used to scrutinize labels and all that. But also the big unlock for me with it is I have a completely different reason for exercising. And it's a shock for me to say it to myself, but I love fitness. I love athleticism. And the reason is because I do it just because I enjoy it, which I never would have been able to discover if I had kept on this exercise is to undo the eating that you're doing. Right. So it was like a punishment and a control kind of thing. It has none of that anymore. So I've just gotten to discover, like, I really like going for like a 4-hour bike ride, which I haven't been able to do in a few years. So that's been huge for me, just discovering a completely different life for myself through the freedom of like, look, it's just what's going on today. I got all the tools at my disposal, and I do what I need to do every day to make sure I'm at my goals all the time. And it's surprisingly easy.
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's like we're so similar in these things where it's always a choice, and you have the freedom, and that's what allows it to last. It's not the like being on a regimen. There's a podcast I listen to. It's called Primal Endurance, and Brad Kearns is the host, and he talks a lot about this, where everything he does is fun. He doesn't do anything where it's like he doesn't even have like a weekly workout schedule. Even like he used to be a pro triathlete, even like in his last few years, he didn't even have I'm biking on Monday, and on Tuesday I'm swimming and running, and like he didn't have any of that. He just kind of like had a general idea of what he wanted to accomplish, and day to day, so do a day, he would decide what to do that day. And it worked pretty well for him. It worked really well for him. And he's really happy, and he loves doing it. And like and it's like, I think that's one of the keys there, combined with the idea of not looking at this huge big picture and getting overwhelmed, and instead just breaking it down. And we have a concept in the Fit Triathlete with mini habits. It's very similar. And instead of saying, oh my God, I got to run 10 miles today, it's like, you set the goal of your only thing you have to do. The only thing on your checklist or your to-do list is wake up and put on your running shoes. And that's it. Like, there's nothing more you have to do. And if you decide to go out and run that day, that's great. And if you decide to run 5 miles, that's great. 10 miles, whatever it is. But it's just a habit of getting into that habit of starting something that is totally doable.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I love that.
Yeah. So, so let's, we've probably been talking for a while now, but let's kind of wrap it up. I wanted to ask you about the last thing I want to ask you about is that idea of habits. So do you think that this do-a-day kind of philosophy is something where people can form these habits that last?
Yeah, it's an interesting word that I talk about with people a bit is, there's a lot of great work on habits and I'm not anti-habits, but people are like, what are your good habits? I just don't look at them that way. So like for me, it's not about habits or willpower or what. It's just like, this is just what you do. Mm-hmm. And I feel like when you're fired up by true motivation, it's not about like, oh, I need to have good habits or I need to repeatedly do this and then it'll sink in. It's just what you do because you're so like you have such a passion for achieving it. So that's for me, but I recognize not everyone's like that. And so what can be really helpful in the tracking of your progress is that keeps you mindful of your behaviors. And when you're mindful of your behaviors, you will behave better. And when you behave better in a consistent fashion, you start to develop specific habits. So however you want to get there, I do think taking this mindful, purpose-driven approach, like real motivation approach, and not getting caught up in the yesterday and tomorrow allows you to do the right things with consistency that leads you to having self-reinforcing, almost like you don't have to think about doing kind of habits, if you want to call them that.
Yeah.
And that's, you'd asked me before about different situations. Like I have not found a situation where do a day doesn't apply. And there's plenty of stuff I haven't been through. Like I talk about the weight loss side, fitness. The last chapter in the book kind of throws out, I don't even know if it's like 9 or 10 different scenarios with just a quick, like, here's how you could use do a day here. Mm-hmm. But I get reached out to by people telling me how they've applied it to their life. Like there's a guy who's actually was a coach of mine who he had this stone wall behind his house and they wanted to rebuild it in the front of the house. And for like years, he and his partner would look at the wall and just never do anything with it because it was too big and too much work. And I sent him the book and he's like, we looked at it and we just both go do a day. And each rock was a day. They didn't do it one per day. They just looked at it as like, we're just moving this rock right now.
Right.
And he's like, I'm trying to think if it took them one day or a couple of days. They thought it would be like a multi-week project. So, from something as profound as like losing 100 pounds to something as seemingly trivial as relocating a stone wall, mm-hmm. Those are pretty opposite ends of the spectrum. But like, getting through endurance events, I've had people who have battled cancer and it's helped them face it. I haven't. That's not part of my story. But to hear from people who have lived through it, and maybe it doesn't click for everybody in that situation, but it's pretty far reaching. It's just a question of whether you're willing to do the work and bring it into your life and bring it into those situations you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, that's amazing stuff, Bryan. I've really enjoyed chatting with you. I think it's a good place to kind of end it. So if people want to get a hold of you, where should they go?
So they can go to bryanfalchuk.com, BRYANFALCHUK, and I've set up a special page for your listeners with a discount on the signed version of the book and some other cool stuff that you can get just to help you on the journey. But it's bryanfalchuk.com/try/swim. And I know I don't need to tell people how to spell try. It's not TRY. This is really just for triathletes, but you can tell other people about it too. So bryanfalchuk.com/try/swim.
Cool. And one last question. What's your first step here on, you said you're going to be training for an Ironman. So as far as the swimming goes, what's your first step?
Yeah, I don't know. So I just left my job a month ago and that was what was standing in the way. And I'm just kind of getting settled back at home and into doing this kind of stuff like the speaking and writing stuff and coaching full time. So once I know I'm totally like, it's never a good day to start a diet. I'm conflicting my own advice, but I honestly I was working in Atlanta during the week and living outside of Boston. So I've been commuting back and forth and I had an apartment there. I've got a ton of stuff I need to sell that's in the way. Yeah. My bike's in pieces. So the balance of this year is cleaning up from coming back. Next year is I want to pick another marathon and start training. And I'm going to bring triathlon training into that. I'm a little bit nervous about doing the cycling and the running because I stopped cycling to run Chicago because I'm the only one of my friends who hasn't had a nasty wipeout. So we'll see. But it's like for me, that's a 2019 I'm going to get back into some endurance events and I want to start training for swimming.
Cool. Let me know what.
I'm dancing around it. I know I'm not being specific. I'm trying not to pressure myself right now. I'm focused on right now. And 2019, I've got some big things that I want to start to put together.
Sure.
So that's on the plan there.
Well, I'll
get to it, man.
Yeah, we'll give you a few months.
Yeah. And I'm gonna come at you for tips and guidance and all that, and maybe a little pep talking.
Yeah. I'd love to help you out and have some swim success.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, that was fun. Thanks for coming on, and best of luck with everything you're doing.
Thanks so much for having me on, Kevin. It was a really good conversation. I like that. I feel like a triathlete, even though I haven't done one yet. I'm in the family, maybe.
Yeah, there you go. Next year.
All right.
Thanks for listening to another episode covering swimming and triathlon mastery. To get your free online swim clinic, just go to tryswimlessons.com. Give us your name and email, and we'll have session number 1 off to you right away. Begin your process of befriending the swim and laughing at the water now.